So, it has been a while. Since my last video, I've been on holiday, filling up with creative ideas and taking time off. And I have also been doing a lot of 3D work for a lot of clients, and it has been amazing. So I'm finally ready to get back into the tutorial game, and we'll start today's tutorial off, as you have probably seen in the beginning, with a procedural water droplet tutorial. Today we're gonna make static water droplets, and we're also gonna make water droplets that are dribbling away. So without further ado, let's just jump into the tutorial. So here inside of Cinema, we have a can, a soda can, and we are going to make the static droplets on the side first. So what we're gonna do is create a cloner and create a sphere. And this sphere we'll just set to 1 centimeter. Let's set the segments to 32. And let's put it inside of the cloner. So inside of the cloner, we're gonna go to Object tab, and we're going to put it to Object mode. But first of all, we are going to make a cloner object. You can see I already did it here. So what I did was just delete the parts that I don't want my clones to be scattered on. So I just have this one underneath the object, and it's hidden. So I'm just gonna use this object to clone onto. So let's put this inside of the object slot here. So as you can see, we are cloning onto the can. And I can see that we need a radius that's a bit smaller, like this. That should be better. So what we're gonna do is gonna go into the cloner, we're gonna go into the transform, and then we're gonna take down the C value to something like 0.65. So we get more of a squished sphere. And now just gonna make this a multi-instance, and then we're gonna crank it up to 10,000 clones. Yes, I know, it's a lot. So we are gonna control these clones now. So first of all, we're gonna take a random, and we're gonna delete the position, and then we're gonna put on some scale. So we are going to make uniform and then type in 1 for our scale. Then we're gonna go select our cloner again, and then we're gonna take a shader effector. And for this shader effector, we are going to put it to -1. And this is important because we're gonna go to the shader tab, make a noise here. And as you can see, we're already getting this smaller bubbles in some areas and bigger bubbles in other areas. And what we're gonna do now is make cavities that other droplets have already run through. So we're gonna take the noise, and first of all, we're just gonna set it to UV. That's much better. Then we're gonna set the middle one to 1000. And as you can see, it's stretched here. So we're gonna set the contrast to 35. Then we're gonna take the lower clip and bring it up a bit. Take the high clip and bring it down. So some of these are getting disappeared. Then we're gonna take the whole thing and scale it down. Alrighty. I'm actually just gonna do it a bit more so we get some more variation. So now we are going to do the biggest thing. And we might need to change the size of our sphere again, but we're gonna do it a little bit later. So we're gonna select our cloner, and then we're gonna take a push apart. And this push apart just pushed everything totally away. So we're gonna set it to 1 centimeter. And yes, as you can see, we just created a star field. That's because our can is really small. So we actually need to set this First of all, we need to set the iterations to 5 because it runs a bit faster that way. Then we can set this to 0.2. And then we can go to our sphere and set that to 0.1. And we're kind of getting it, but there's a lot of cloners. So I'm just gonna turn it down a bit to maybe half, 5,000. Okay. Let's go into this one again. Let's turn it down to 0.1. That's a bit too little. Let's do it like this. Just slowly moving up the numbers. And this should be good. So as you can see, we get these cell patterns. And that's how water droplets work. So I can just see that we need a little bit less in the scale. And that's much better. All right, so now we have the droplets. Let's just put a water material onto the sphere. So you can see we get some nice water droplets here. And now we need to take all of these and put them in a group. Let's call it static droplets. And let's just hide these for now. So now we get into the fun part. Now we're gonna make the droplets that are running down the side. So for this, we're gonna need a matrix object, and we're gonna set it to 0.01 in the scale here under the transform. We're gonna do it for everything. And then we're gonna change the mode to object mode. Then we're gonna duplicate our can cloner. Oops. And I'm just gonna preview it for solo. Then I'm actually gonna delete some of these polygons. So I'm just gonna take ring selection, delete this ring, take a ring selection down here, delete this ring, and then I'm gonna press UF to fill. Then I can delete these, and I can delete this top one. So this is what we're gonna use to clone our running droplets onto. So let's go out of solo mode. Let's go into our matrix object again, and let's call this can matrix. All right, so we're gonna put our can matrix into the object slot. And we're gonna hide it, of course. So let's minimize that. Let's bring this down. And now we are going to make a tracer. So go down here and select the tracer. And as you can see, it already jumped in here because we had it selected. Then we're gonna go down here and set a limit from end. And we're just gonna put it to 55 for now. All right. So now we can select the matrix object, and then we can select a plane effector. So as you can see, the plane effector wants to move these up, and we actually want it to move the other direction. So we're just gonna say -50. And I think this should be fine. So now we're gonna go to the fields tab, and then we're gonna make a shader field. There it is. In our shader field, we're gonna make a noise, and we can just colorize to see what our noise is doing. So let's jump into our noise here. Let me just pull it up so you can see what we're doing. Let's set it to 10 in the global scale. And let's put it to 50 in contrast. Then we can play around with the low cut and the high cut, just to get a bit more contrasted up here. I'm just gonna set mine to 15 and 85. All right. So what we can do now is go back to the plane effector. Let's go to the effector tab, and let's actually animate it. So I'm gonna go to frame 0, Then I'm gonna set a keyframe at 0%, and then I'm gonna go to frame 60, set a keyframe at 100%. I'm gonna open up my timeline here, and then I'm just gonna make them linear. So as you can see now, everything is moving towards the bottom. And we can even take this keyframe and just move it out to frame 90. So what did our plane effector and our shader field actually do? Well, let's turn off the shader field, and I can show you what our plane effector did. So let's go in here and let's turn it off. As you can see, our plane effector is just moving the matrices down, and it's moving everything down at the same rate. So what we're adding is just a noise that's randomizing the intensity of movement. So it's basically just controlling the speed of them. So what you could do if you don't like the seed, you can just choose another one, and then it should be fine. And you can also go to your matrix and take the count off to 50. Because then you're gonna get a lot more of these droopy ones. All right, so what is our next step? Well, we're just gonna move these down so we have everything inside of the same group. Let's call it running droplets. Let's go into our deformers here. Let's select a displacer and let's put it underneath our tracer. So first of all, in our tracer, we're just gonna change the mode from linear to B-spline. That's just gonna make it a little bit more smooth when we're bending the splines. So let's go into our displacer. Let's go into the shading mode. Let's put in a noise again. And let's put it to 25 in the scale. And as you can see, it's really doing a lot. So we're just gonna go out to the displacer in the object tab, just gonna put it to 1 centimeter. And because we are actually working with something that's kind of spherical, we're gonna set the direction to spherical. And if it doesn't do a lot for you, you can even set it to planar. And then it would just move in one plane. So I think I'm just gonna set mine to spherical. And then I'm gonna go to intensity and set it to object. So we are making it in the object space. Let me just set the height to 2 centimeters. And then I'm actually gonna go in here and turn the scale up a bit. So it looks a bit nicer. Let's find a good seed. Yeah, like 45, I think is good. But you can just play around with the numbers. And for now, this works for me. So let me just play it for you guys so you can see what it's doing. It's just making these wavy splines that's running down the side. And it looks a bit more natural. Alright, so now we're actually gonna create the droplets. And for this, I'm actually just gonna set the count to 25. Because I think it looks a bit more realistic. In my opinion. So what we're gonna do here is go and create a volume builder. And we're also going to create a volume measure. So let's put the tracer inside of the volume builder. And let's put the volume builder inside of the volume measure. All right. So the volume builder. Let's just turn off the volume measure. And let's focus on the volume builder. So I'm just going to set the voxel size to 1. Because I know my scale is really low. So I'm also just going to go into my tracer here. Set the radius to 1. and let's see what's happening. So as you can see, we definitely need a lot more density. So let's set the density to 1, and let's set the voxel size to 0.5. As you can see, we are already getting somewhere. And it kind of looked like droplets. That's so great. So let me just turn this down a bit more to this. And let's set the density to 2. And just like that, we have something that actually looks great. But you might say, this doesn't look like a water droplet. Well, that's true, because we need to taper it. So we need to go to the scale long, and then we need to craft this really weird shape. So we're just gonna craft a water droplet shape. And as you can see, something is wrong. We are actually just making some of these bigger and some of them smaller. So that's because we forgot one important step. The important step is we need to turn this on. Scale per segment. When we do that, we actually get our water droplet. So as you can see, when I do this, we actually change the curve of the water droplet. And I like my water droplets to have a long tail on them. So like this. And yeah, I think this should be fine. Maybe I'm just gonna turn this down to 0.2 just to get a bit more refined. And you can even set the density up to like 5. So now we're gonna turn on our volume measure. And as you can see, some of these places is looking a bit weird. And maybe it's because our voxel size is a bit low. So I'm actually just gonna take the tail end here. Let's pull it down. Let's take the voxel size to 0.1. And it got a bit slower, but it also got a lot finer in the tail, as you can see. So as you remember, the tail is actually moving after 55 segments. So we can go and change that in here. You remember the from in the mount. So you can just say 100. And then the tail is just going to be longer and longer and longer and longer. So I think this should be very good for our test. So the last thing we need to do is turn off the matrix so we don't have to look at that. And then we of course need to get this water material onto our running droplets. And we also need to go back here, turn on the cloner, and turn on the other droplets. And then I'm actually just gonna bring in a simple little light. So as you can see, the light actually didn't do anything, but our water droplets are still here. So let me actually just delete this light so we just have a white background. All right, let's turn it a bit down. Like this. So as you can see, we have some nice looking water droplets. And a last thing you can do is just go into your volume builder and then put a cache on it, a cache layer by clicking this, create cache layer, and then press the animation button, then press cache. And now everything should be cached. So I just made a quick little preview for you guys so you can see what we're doing. And this is what we have made. So the water droplets are running down the side and it looks so freaking fantastic. And remember, this is all procedural. So you can actually just go and replace the object that is on and it should work fine. The only thing is that you may need to find another way to move these water droplets. But for this can trick, it definitely works. Just for a final little thing, some of you guys may need to have these water droplets that are static interact with the running droplets. You can also do that, but it's a bit heavy on your computer. So you can actually bring this cloner inside of the volume builder. I'm not going to do it now because it might crash my computer, but that's definitely a thing you can do. And then when the water droplets are running down, they will actually interact with the other static water droplets. So that was how to make procedural water droplets. And I really hope you liked the tutorial and you can use it for something. And now it's time for the boring stuff. So, as you probably know, down in the description you can follow all the links to all my social media and my Discord server and my HDRI packs and everything under the sun. So if you have any questions, then please write them down below in the comment section. I'm always there to answer your questions. So if you have something that you want to share with me, then share it on Instagram, because I'm always ready to answer your messages. Alright, so that was all the boring stuff away. So this is the end of the video, and it has been so great doing tutorial with you guys again. It has been great seeing you, and until next time, I'm just gonna say goodbye.